Now, let's kick off this hour of power with Fox Nation host Tammy Bruce. Tammy, it's great to have you back on the U.S. Thanks for joining us. And there's breaking news out of Russia, where WNBA basketball player Brittany Griner is being released from prison in exchange for a Russian arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death. Now, given the fact that Griner has so little love for her country that she called on the national anthem not to be played at her games, doesn't the Biden administration look like a bunch of patsies here?
Well, this is, I think, this is part of the discussion now. Ms. Griner not only asked for that, but she also refused to go on to the court while the national anthem was playing. But in her one of her pleas to President Biden, she noted that her viewpoint of freedom had changed now that she'd experienced what had happened to her in Russia. And so we hope, of course, we want every American back here at home, whether or not they're happy or not. We want them back here at home. And so hopefully Ms. Griner's point of view about the greatness of this country, the freedoms that we enjoy, will shift. It's a thing that her generation and a couple of generations now have taken for granted. There's a presumption that freedom is all around the world, that America is the worst that there is. And of course, that's not true. But in the meantime, so we're glad she's coming home. We want all Americans home. President Trump had a history of being able to get hostages out without exchanges, without paying money. And so what Americans are also concerned about is that we let go the Merchant of Death. And he's got that title for a reason. Working with terrorists, targeting Americans. This is a very, very bad man. Getting weapons to terrorist groups. Many more people, especially now with Russia and the Ukraine situation, with Ukraine, of course, being under attack. That man will be put to use. And yet we've left a Marine who's been in jail on sketchy charges. We did not get him back. There's another American that's being held. We did not get that person back. So it seems like Putin was in charge from the start. Not only did they get this maniac, this monster, freed, but it's in return for just one of several hostages, effectively. I think you can call all of them hostages, and we got just one back. So Americans are wondering about the priorities of the Biden administration. Once again, a weakness in the nature of the choices they've made and in how they've dealt with the foreign situation. And of course, now who will die? What will be the damage of our releasing this Merchant of Death?
Well, Tammy, I think you're absolutely right there. I think America looks weak. I think the Biden administration got played for fools by Vladimir Putin, and it's a disgrace that Marine Paul Whelan is still in jail. But we'll see. Maybe Brittany Griner becomes this incredible patriot and comes on the U.S. report in some future week. But let's move on. Now, I'd love to get your take, Tammy, on the Twitter files. Were you surprised by, we knew all this was going on, but were you surprised by just how deeply the swamp was involved in censoring not just the Hunter Biden laptop story, but a whole lot more besides?
No, and I think this is what's important about this. Yes, it did confirm it. And it's one thing to presume or to point to other things. It's another thing to know and describe. But as writers and as journalists, you want to be able to show. And this is the ultimate showing. It was very important. And of course, there's been a kind of a panic in general on the left about this because they know the importance, that they can't describe things as just a conspiracy theory or the nutty right wing and it also, by the way, bothers genuine classical liberals, right? There's classical liberals out there who don't like any of this. We knew of the FBI's involvement through Mark Zuckerberg and his comments during an interview, of course, they had a Facebook, that the FBI had been working with them and warning them about Russian disinformation with the laptop. And so, of course, we had to presume that the FBI wasn't only talking to Facebook, that was kind of greasing the wheel there and giving them kind of a CYA, a cover their derriere, in order to act on suppressing this information. So for us to see, in your opening monologue was absolutely hit the nail on the head. This is about American federal law enforcement working with communications companies and internet platforms to censor the American people, to censor political information that would impact an election. And look, we hear stories all the time about the FBI knowing ahead of time about a shooter or about an event that might happen that is not stopped. And yet this is what they're spending their time on. So Americans, we have a legitimacy issue here. Americans find their trust in the government declining, specifically because of behavior like this. And so there's a much larger dynamic that we're concerned about is, what is the government doing? Why are they doing it? Why are we now the focus of federal law enforcement's ire when we have a world that is in a great deal of trouble? So what else are they missing? And when did the American people become the enemy to our federal government? It's an important question and one that concerns many of us.
Tammy, I think you're absolutely spot on about that. I think what's happened with the FBI and the politicization of it has just been absolutely shocking, and we're seeing more and more of this every week. We'll speak about this again in a coming week, but in the meantime, Tammy Bruce, thank you so much for joining us on the U.S. Report.